Phil's looking to bounce back after dropping 2 of 3 in Arizona. Going to talk some baseball now with Seth Everett from NBC Sports Radio, the 24/7 live sports talk network. You can listen at NBCSportsRadio.com. Download the NBC Sports Radio mobile app today. And Seth, here we go into the month of August, where almost daily now you're actually watching these games with a lot of intent.
Yep.
And 2 out of 3, the Phillies. Yeah, right. Phillies lose 2 out of 3 out in Arizona, and really. The game that they had the other night, that they had Arrieta out there for 8, that's the game that in September, if you start losing a game, you might look back to that night. Did you have a problem with him pulling Arrieta, or is that just the game as we know it today?
It's just that's Gabe. I mean, it's not even Gabe. That's what these yim-yams do. I mean, it's an old argument. That's all that I'm saying. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, you know. But yeah, I thought that too. I watched yesterday. I watched a good chunk of yesterday, and I just thought Corbin was on.
Yeah, he was
and
good.
You know, you see why these teams are good. You know, you just because you don't have a team winning 110 games like you have in the American League doesn't mean you have slouches. You know what I mean? It just doesn't exist like that.
Well,
so,
and Kepler said it yesterday that the Diamondbacks are a lot like the Phillies. They grind at bats. They take a lot of pitches. So these are teams that have these philosophies, and they're working for them.
Yeah, it all works. You know, it's a product of the Kansas City Royals in 2015, and you know, you start to see trends, and these are the trends. I mean, this is what the trends are.
Yeah.
And my attitude has been, what's it, a half game? You know, it's 2 months of this. And, pennant races have a new rule. Instead of saying, is my rotation good enough, or is my lineup good enough, my defense good enough, it's what time does my team play, what time does their team play, and who else do I have to worry about?
Well,
it's funny because, at 6.5, I am eliminating, in my head, St. Louis and San Francisco, but at 6, I'm not eliminating the Nationals. Not yet.
I was just going to say, you got the Nationals at 6 after this. The Phillies lose 2 out of 3. The Phillies lose 2 out of 3, but the Nationals also lost 2 out of 3 to the Braves, so they fell to 6.
Braves. Yeah.
Exactly. So the Braves stayed alive, or stayed close, but the Nationals kind of dropped behind you a little bit more. But I agree. I think people are not ready to write off the Nationals. What is it about the Nationals other than they just were the team at the beginning of the year that we should be looking at them for?
Oh, there's just so much talent. I mean, we've seen the talent. We know who's there. We know what kind of a ball club it is. And I'm always surprised when I see them struggle. And I feel like they're going to flip a switch. But I think it's funny. Like I didn't hesitate. So I was, I'm going on the air all over the country this morning, and I swear to God, people said to me, "What about St. Louis?" I said, "Nah, they're done." People said, "What about San Francisco?" I said, "Nah, they're done." What about Washington? Oh, yeah, they're in it. It's a half game.
Well, I'll tell you what. I think most people agree with you. I think most people agree that they're going to be around here. But that Braves team, they're interesting. And the Phillies, I think, as much as people believe in the Nationals, people are still having trouble jumping on the Phillies.
Well, it's just because it's uncharted territory. I mean, I don't think you're demeaning by saying you have these 2 young teams that have never been there before. One of them's going to win. How do you predict which one? I mean, they're both young. They're both talented. They both have, exciting young teams. They have.
Well, I've heard the argument that the Braves have some higher end, younger talent than the Phillies do. You buying that?
Well, but that's not a question for 2 months. That's a question for long-term viability. A lot of people think what the Braves are building is reminiscent of what the Astros are building. Nobody said that about the Phillies. But, again, at this point in the season, you have 2 months to play, and it's a half-game difference. Go win. Right. I haven't looked at the schedule. How many? I know the Cubs play the Brewers 9 times. How many times do the Phillies play the Braves?
I believe they play the Braves 6 more times. They have 4 games set in September, and then the last 3 games of the year. So they play 7 more times.
7. All right. You got to go 5-2.
Okay. Let me ask you.
Go 5-2 and go 5-2 in those 7 games. You win the division.
Okay. I'm looking at Boston at 81-34. They're a 199 run differential. They've won 9 out of 10, 6 in a row. Is this the best Boston team we've seen?
No, this is going to sound demeaning, and I don't mean it to be, but their numbers are inflated. Look at the Orioles, the Royals, the White Sox. Like, there are some really brutal teams in baseball. And what has happened as a result of that, if I took 10 wins away from the Yankees and the Red Sox, would you not tell me the same analysis for both teams? Like, they're good. Don't get me wrong, they're very good, but they won. The Red Sox have won 25 out of 30.
Crazy.
They're beating up on every brutal team in the American League, and the thing about the American League is there's tons of brutal teams.
Tons of brutal teams and some really good ones, too. We've got Boston, we've got the Yankees, we've got Cleveland, we've got Houston, we've got the A's, and I guess the Mariners are 15 games over 500 and probably not going to be good enough to make the playoffs.
Right. Well, the Mariners, I think, have a shot. The Mariners are not. The Mariners are in it. Very much in it. The Mariners, their run differential has been brutal, even when they were winning. It just wasn't good.
Yeah, they're minus 29.
Yeah. So a lot of people have said they needed to inject a little bit of offense. I think the Cano suspension has hurt them
big time.
I think that for the Mariners, though, they get the A's head to head. It's funny. I'm going to be out in Seattle next weekend. Their situation's going to be where ultimately they are going. They're playing the A's, but it's in Oakland, of course. I go all the way out to Seattle and I miss them by a couple hundred miles. But there's a head-to-head matchup, and there's a chance. Paxton's got to start pitching better. They just have to ramp it up. It's kind of crunch time for them.
We're talking with Seth Everett. We'll leave you with this. How do we pronounce Jay Happ's name?
I mean, come on. that ticked me off so much. I mean, Mark Teixeira, first of all, I took a lot of pride in Baseball Tonight. I hosted Baseball Tonight. I love that show, and, I thought that show was the gold standard for baseball shows, and it's a shell of itself. I mean, it's unwatchable, but it was very funny. I was cleaning up from dinner, and I flipped it on because I remember why, because I was watching the International Champions Cup, the soccer. And I flipped it on, and it was on, and Mark Teixeira starts talking about how the Yankees are going to get J.A. Happ back. And I went, are you kidding me? First of all, you played against him. We're not – look, everybody made that mistake 10 years ago. Everybody made that mistake. I get it. He made the All-Star team. We're not – it's the same idiots that call him Giancarlo Stanton.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. We're in the Philly market, and people still call him J.A. Happ here.
I mean, the guy, what else does the guy have to do?
He won 20 games a couple of years ago. It's unbelievable.
He did 20 games. He's an all-star. What? We're not talking about some rookie. Like, when he first came up with the Phillies, I screwed it up the first time. Of course you did. You see something, you say something, I understand. But, it's hysterical to me that a guy on Baseball Tonight, like they only do one show a week. You can't get the names right that one time?
You're listening to Seth Everett here on 97.3 ESPN. You can hear him more on NBC Sports Radio, the 24/7 live sports talk network. You can listen at NBCSportsRadio.com. Download the NBC Sports Radio mobile app today. Seth, enjoy the week, pal.
Oh, you got it. Thanks,
all right, always fun to catch up with Seth Everett here.